Another Monday is here, and another week starts. Our weekend is over. We're back to the grind. Typically, we try to catch up on all the things we wanted to do for the weekend, and then we kind of hit the grind back on Monday. And for the most people, we kind of phase out what's going on, maybe not pay attention to as much news, maybe not do as much because we have a normal schedule we have to get back to. The scary thing is, because of that, slowly and surely, we're the frog in the boiling kettle. We're not paying attention to what goes on around us. So let's jump into 5 things that you should be aware of this week, that you should be paying attention to, and making sure you can do all that you can to gain wisdom from it, to prep for it, to look for better avenues for you and your family, and hopefully we can make a difference. This is going to be a good video, and hopefully you'll gain some wisdom from it. This video starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to the Max. Thank you so much for being here. If you're new to the channel, go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's okay, but let us know what you think about the video below. We have about 40% of our watchers are subscribed, about 60 not, so please, it doesn't cost anything, just push the subscribe button. It's free. We'll be very appreciative of that. So let's jump into the content today. Sorry you're under the porch again, it's raining. You know, rain days are not bad days. We still have to work in them, but it's actually really good for our crops and for our farm. We need to be paying attention to some of these things that are going on around us. I think a lot of times we get so busy with our normal work week, we really just kind of put all the news and all the anxiety and all the stress kind of on the back burner. But to be honest with you, if we don't look and we don't gain wisdom and we don't try to prepare for what's going on around us, I believe we'll wake up one day and say, oh my gosh, what has happened to America? Number 1, to me this is a big one, and I'm gonna probably be the opposite of what you want to hear, and to be honest with you, probably the more uncommon and unpopular approach. Number 1 would be the debt ceiling. It is a fight that's going on. Now, on both sides, they want to raise the debt ceiling. The Democrats want to just have an inevitable raise. The Republicans want to raise it just a little bit with some contingencies. Both of those are bad because we're still spending more money than we're actually bringing in. So honestly, I truly believe we need to be involved in the debt ceiling, and we need to see the debt ceiling not raised, and we need to default. Sometimes a hard fall and the contagion, if we can contain it and we can make it happen, then I believe we're going to see a less recession and not a depression. What I mean by that is this: if we control the fact of the Fed is raising rates, we're seeing inflation still be high, we're seeing interest rates go up, which is causing us to kind of fall into a recession. When we learn to control what's going on, such as the debt, and we learn to try to cut spending, we try to manage our money better, change money around. We don't need to spend this much money here, let's put it here. I believe we went back to a balanced budget as a culture, as a society. Overall, it will be better. Now, that would mean we would go through some economic hardships by not raising the debt ceiling. The market would probably fall out pretty good, and your retirements would struggle. But to be honest with you, your retirements have been struggling because we're in the economy that we're in. So I think we've got to get to better policy, and better policy means you can't raise the debt ceiling. We've got to quit spending money. For instance, in your home, if you keep spending money and you're using credit cards, which the rates and interest are going up, do you realize you're never going to get on top of it by paying the minimums? The more interest goes up, the more interest you're paying and not principal. So you have to be careful of borrowing money. Debtor is always enslaved to the lender. We don't want to always owe the banks. We don't want to always owe all these countries, especially again as the government. We have to have some independence. Independence comes with money sovereignty, and our dollar is struggling. Economy is not in the best shape. So to be honest with you, I believe we need to contain it. Don't raise the debt ceiling. Kind of brace for impact, because the economy would struggle, but it would be a lot better than if we just keep raising our interest rates and then all of a sudden can't afford to pay it and we don't have a contingency plan. The unpopular opinion is to definitely let the debt ceiling go. We need to default on our debt, restructure it, and understand that we have got to change policy. We can't just keep printing money. That's absolutely stupid. We need to change policy, and we need to get a handle more to a balanced budget. So pay attention to that this week. I believe if we just raise the debt ceiling, the stock market will be okay. However, we are going to be facing an inevitable issue one day down the road. So I'm saying control it now, go through the hard times, put yourself in the recession that we already know we're in, but control it, get back to a balanced budget, and really seek guidance and money sovereignty here in America. Number 2, the sovereignty of owning firearms. We're seeing massive shootings. We're seeing terrible tragedies happen across America. It could be mental issues, it could be firearm issues. I believe we have a lot of discussions to have as Americans. However, one thing we cannot do is allow our sovereignty and our freedoms and our liberties that we fought so hard for go away. So be careful of the conversations of these laws and these regulations on banning certain things, such as our right to bear arms. That is a big deal. And I want you to understand, if you look at cultures that do that, then the government has more power. So if you're wanting government to have more power, you to have less freedom, most of these generations that we're raising now is wanting those things. That's the wrong approach. And I believe that, again, we're in that hardship to where young men made a great economy, a great America, to now we're seeing a great America starting to fall because we have weak leadership and weak men. So we can't lose the battle on firearms. And I know that's a big discussion and there's a lot to hash out, but I'm saying this: if we don't pay attention to keeping the right to bear arms, I believe we're going to see a societal collapse later on down the road. You're not going to see people willingly give their self-defense tools up. At the same time, you're not going to see the government just stand by and let this happen. So there's some major discussions that's got to happen, but losing the right to bear arms is a big deal, and we cannot let that happen. Our government, our news medias, and all these influencers are pushing for that to take place because of these tragedies. Do not let these tragedies play into our emotions to take away our rights. That's in any situation. So I know people say, well, we're not going to vote for this person or this congressman's kind of corrupt, or we think that he's not going to pass the legislation we want. Then you learn to vote with your dollars. You start buying things that are good for your family by preparing. One of those things are arms. There's nothing wrong with putting that up. That's a good way to hedge against inflation because those things are always valuable. So please don't miss out on this situation of our freedoms and our liberties when it comes to bearing arms. Number 3 is Title 42, the immigration issue. We are seeing massive chaos on the border of Mexico and America. Now, do we want to help people out of any troubled times? Absolutely. Just like I've told you, I believe goods, and if we can be the person who provides food and aid to anyone in war or any culture, no matter where they're at in the world, I would love to be that person. But we're not supposed to be in wars. That's the difference. Same way with our American border. We should be a sovereign country to make sure that we can protect all avenues of our border. That's from the Pacific to the Atlantic to the south, and of course to the north. We have to protect our sovereignty. Now, here's the thing I worry about the most. We're seeing massive amounts of millions of people coming across our border. The problem is this. First of all, we don't have enough funds in America to protect and take care of our disabled, our sick, our elder, and the people of America. We're struggling on that. That's why our economy is falling to shambles. That's why people are living on the streets. That's why Medicaid and Social Security is in the shape it's in. Because government cannot afford to keep doing that. We can't keep taxing people, and we can't keep printing money to take care of the folks. So if we can't do that in America, and we can't do it for the American people that's already here, how in the world are we going to do that with excessive millions of other folks that are coming in? They may need help, and we want to help them the best we can, but we need to do that in those countries. We don't need to bring everyone here, and we need to protect our borders. Another situation, not only is it a financial burden or a financial hardship on a lot of these counties, towns, cities, think about it. If you can't afford the tax, you can't afford to take care of them. Now, who else is coming across our borders? While we're letting all these people in, are any of these people terrorists? Are any of these people on anyone's radar? Are they dangerous to our society? Are they gangs? Are they dangerous for the American people? Those are things that we need to think about. So immigration is a big deal. Amnesty is a big deal. Closing our borders is a big deal. But that discussion is taking place because all of a sudden, mid-May is when all this is going to come to head. Either we're going to see the influx of people just flow across the border like they're doing now, get worse, or we're going to do something about it. I'm scared to see the chaos that Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California may see the coming few days and weeks. But if we don't get a handle on it, it's not going to go away. We can't just turn our eye to it and say, oh, that's Texas and all of them over there. It's like anything else. It's going to migrate all across America. And again, financial issues with that, security issues with that, both of those are concerns when it comes to Title 42. in the battle of our borders. I can't go to any other country and lackadaisically walk in and just expect them to take care of me. That's a bad policy. We've wrapped that up into politics, and that's a wrong decision. So pay attention to that this week. Number 4 kind of goes along with the debt ceiling. It's another financial topic, but you're seeing big banks just absorb these small banks. The banking crisis, the interest rate hikes, the bad investments of these banks are causing regional banks to struggle. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think there was a story, I think on Zero Hedge just the other day, that there was hundreds of banks that were struggling. So if we see a lot of banks struggling, we see the interest rates not going down, we see the economy not really getting better, people are not just blowing and spending and going crazy because of the cost of living nowadays. If we see more banks struggle, 2 things are going to happen. They're going to shut down and people are going to have bank runs. Or you're going to see more banks get bought out by the bigger banks, and those bigger banks are going to keep on getting bigger. If we keep allowing these bigger banks to get bigger, such as your JP Morgan Chase, your Bank of America, your Goldman Sachs, your Citigroups, all those kind, what's going to happen is they're going to control every part of your life. Money is the key to a lot of things. And if they can control it, then they can control everything that's going on with it. They can control the loans, they can control what businesses do what, because they have the power. Remember, the debtor is slave to the lender. So that policy and that precedent can be a big deal. So pay attention to the big banks buying out the smaller banks. Not only that, that's actually not supposed to happen. We're not supposed to have the big banks keep getting bigger. We're supposed to have a bigger financial institution. There's been a cut of like 50% of banks over the last 10 to 15 years. That is scary, because when these big banks get too big, then they're quote unquote too big to fail, then guess what? They can do whatever they want. They can be as risky as they want, because they know the government and the Fed is going to back them. Remember, most of these big banks are the Fed. So pay attention to this situation. These smaller banks getting bought out by these bigger banks is dangerous. And I'm scared because a lot of people are saying, well, these smaller banks are not safe, so we've got to move to the bigger banks. It's going to make a mass migration of your own money to these bigger banks, and it's going to make them get bigger, and all of a sudden they've got all the power. Number 5 is the culture war. We have lost all sense of morals and values. And the scary thing is, we see both sides. We see the administration that's in power now, but also Trump. They're both moving away from those moral and those culture battles. They're fighting over the economy and finances and things like that. It doesn't matter how good your job is, or how low the interest rate is, or how much money you can have in your retirement. If you can't live in your city because the moral chaos and the value system is gone, then you're going to be living in your own little prison, because you can't go outside because it's not safe. But things like the immigration battle is a big deal. The religious liberties is a big deal. The right to bear arms is a big deal. But not only those things, the fact of our children getting indoctrinated in schools, the fact that we have a foolish thinking that we don't know what morality is when it comes to men and women. Those things are cultural wars that we cannot shy away from. I do like the fact that even on the Democrat side, you see RFK, who I'm not a supporter of. But to be honest with you, I like the fact that he is pushing some cultural battles on the freedoms of children. That's a big deal, and the freedoms away from some of the regulations on certain things, if you know what I mean. And then on the Republican side, I love the fact that you're seeing conservatives like Vivek and Ron come against and say, let's talk about these cultural issues. Vivek is doing that. I'll be honest with you. I actually have been more inclined to say Vivek is at least making more common sense. We cannot push away from some of the cultural issues, because no matter how good your dollar is, no matter how good the economy is, if you cannot control the crime, the theft, the cultural issues, the policies of morals and values, then how do you know you're safe? How do you know you can go to the malls? How do you know you can go to your church? How do you know you can do those things if all our culture has fell into peril? That is happening. Look at our cities. And it's going to get worse if we don't face these cultural issues head on. The cultural battles, the religious liberties, those situations need to be touched, not only for the Democrats and Republicans, also for the family home. Make sure you're talking about these issues with your families. Make sure you're talking about your core values, your morals, so your kids understand what right and wrong is. If your kids have to go to school, if you can't homeschool, which I believe you should be homeschooling, if you're not homeschooling, make sure that you are loving on your kids and explaining to them what all this is. And if they hear something crazy at school, face it head on. You talk about it as a family, and you try to restore what morals and values that our world is pushing against. So as I said earlier, the way to fix a lot of this is the way we vote with our dollars. It's not just the way that we vote for the politician, because most of them lie to us. We know that. Sometimes elections don't change anything. Sometimes elections do change, so I say keep voting for sure. But if you learn to spend your money wisely, if you learn to put your money in these local banks, if you learn to buy some of those arms that we talked about so you can have a good stockpile of those things, if you learn to teach your children morals and values, if you start pushing your own finances to be stronger, balancing your own budgets, getting out of debt, all these things will help you be more ready and more prepared as we see these coming issues that we're having. These are crises that we just sweep over. We act like they don't exist because we go back to our busy Monday, go back to our busy week. Please don't glass over at these things. Understand these battles are fights that are going on, and the only way that you can hit them head on is if you know what you're battling, you know how to be wise in it, and you know how to take care of your family. So prepare that way. You're doing all that you can to take care of your family, your home, building security there, because I don't know if you can trust anyone else to do that. Guys, pay attention to this week. These are things that we have to watch for. These situations will become crises, which will make chaos, which will make for more regulation. Remember that. The more collapse, the more chaos, the more crises, the more government overreach and step in and regulation. And that's what's scary. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think below. Do you want to hear cultural battles? Do you want to see your elected officials actually talk about some of the hard issues instead of the little softball politics that they do? It's a big deal. Guys, thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful Monday. I'm gonna get out in this rain and actually have to go to work. Don't get so busy and tangled in all the economy and tangled in all that and miss out on taking care of your children and understand raising a home in a wise way. Guys, thank you for watching. God bless. Happy homeschooling.